Alrighty, we got to pull up our other Facebook group online. I wonder why that just doesn't come up automatically. I don't know. Maybe it's because there's two Facebook pathways. I don't know. It's working hard though. We're working hard.
Yeah.
We're in.
Yeah.
Good morning,
Maybe the
everybody.
software hits them one at a time.
Maybe either way, StreamYard's pretty awesome. So we'll appreciate it and be able to stream across all these platforms at once. We'll take it. But welcome in, guys. It is Thursday morning, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, and it's time for another episode of Broncos for Breakfast. Scott, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. My dad just came over this morning and changed out my thermostat. So it is blowing cool air into my hot office. And so we should stay in the 70s instead of breaking mid 80s. And I'm sitting here doing this by the end of wiping sweat off on my brow by the end of the show. So should be good.
Yeah.
The summer's heating up, but we are cooling down.
Well, that's awesome. Lucky that you have a handyman, old man sticking around.
That's why I'm not handy. I do electronics for him. He does electric for me.
I am the same way with a bunch of different stuff, electronics, general stuff going on. But landscaping, my dad's a landscape architect. I do not know the first thing about that. People ask me questions. I'm like, I don't know. I water the lawn sometimes. That's the extent of it.
I actually enjoy cutting the grass, but I don't like doing all the pickup and the trimming and cleanup stuff. Yeah. That's no fun. And Fitbit, I don't know if you're a Fitbit person or anything like that, gives you not nearly enough credit for yard work because I'll be outside for 2 minutes and I'm drenched like I just ran 100 miles.
Yeah, that's nope, not for me. Like pulling weeds and stuff, I can do that, but the actual landscape, leave that for the old man. We got Robert coming in. Robert Ribel, the $5 super. Speaking of good, he says, "Good morning, gents. Hey, Nick, what's been one of the toughest mountains you've summited?" I've done Mount St. Helens twice. The first time it was whiteout conditions at the top with 60-mile-an-hour winds. It was so cold that I used a pair of long underwear as like a scarf and a socks as an extra pair of gloves. So that was really tough. And St. Helens is really tough because the last like 3/4 of a mile is pea-sized rock and ash at like a 50-degree angle. So you're literally just sliding backwards the whole time. Like every step you go forward, you slide back about half a step for that last half mile, which is incredibly tough. And then you have to like navigate a boulder going downfield. The other toughest one I've done is probably Longs Peak in Colorado. I know that's a pretty popular one. A lot of people have done, but that's the only 14er I've done technically because there's 10,000 14ers. You're starting higher up in Colorado, guys. They're tall, but you're starting higher up too. So those are the toughest ones. But man, Mount St. Helens is a unique challenge. But now I got that itch. I want to do all 5 of the stratovolcanoes in Washington State. Eyeing Mount Adams for next spring. Got to get the mountaineering gear, but I'm going to do it. We're going to get it done. But what about you, Scott? You done any mountaineering? Any climbs?
No, that's not my thing, but I do enjoy a former colleague, Mark Pattison, just finished the 7th summit. If you haven't followed him on Instagram or someplace, Mark Pattison NFL, look him up. He just became, I think, the oldest person to do all 7 summits, but he was the first former NFL player to do all 7 summits. Good friend of ours, mine and Chad's. And the transformation that he took doing the last one of Everest is staggering. I think he dropped like 25, 30 pounds, and he went from, big former NFL wide receiver, buff looking older dude to, oh my God, he's dying. His after picture of doing Everest. So the stuff that they do is just crazy. And 2 things. I'm going to get to Robert after we say hello to everybody. Robert says you have to know how to do the basic stuff. Cars, engines. Now, engines are a little different. Now, if it's changing the oil or basic maintenance or my radiator fell apart, I could do that stuff. And I can change tires and wheels and all that kind of basic stuff. But you need to be an electrician to do, or a computer science engineer to do cars these days. Come on. That's even mechanics don't work on cars anymore. They do those remotely. It's all software based these days. It's tougher and tougher.
I can change my oil, and I feel accomplished doing that, or change a blown tire. So we'll get into it.
But yes, linebackers today. Linebackers.
Absolutely. We're going to do it unless the chat has something else going on. We can talk about all the peaks. And I think Scott, when he was talking about there, he meant the 7 summits. The 7 summits, probably the tallest one on each continent.
Yeah. Yes. He did. He did all of them and just finished with, because there was one he had to go back and do. I don't remember which one, but it blizzard. It may have been Antarctica, where he had to go back and try and do it twice. But then he got COVIDed out because he was supposed to do Everest in 2020. And the mental preparation to do that and the disappointment. We talk about the nature of competitive athletes, of the athletes that make it to the highest level, and the mental capacity that they have to be great. It's on a different level. I've heard from doctors and stuff that operate on professional athletes and stuff. They're just, the density of the muscle tissue and all this stuff. It's just a different caliber of human being all around. Yeah. They're just different than you and me, for better or for worse.
They're born. Stars are born. No, guys, welcome in. Speaking of stars, this is Broncos for breakfast. You guys can follow us 2 stars now. You can follow us both on Twitter, Scott at Scout Kennedy, and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. And while you guys are over there, make sure you follow us also at Huddle Up Pod and Mile High Huddle. Shout out to the Facebook people so far who have been in here. Gary Leeds Palmer dropping the heart. Thank you, Gary Leeds. You're the best. And we also got a couple likes on Facebook. Hunter's in the house. We got Christopher Espinoza. If you guys are joining us on Facebook today, please quickly go over. Just click the thumbs up, click the heart, click the care react, click the wow react. We'll take any of them. Click the sad react. That's engagement. I need it. Important to my veins. Also, while you guys are over there, make sure you follow us at huddleuppod.com and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. YouTube folks, I know there's a lot of YouTube people in here. You can be like our buddy Robert, who joined us today. Thank you very much for the super chat already kicking us off. But if you guys are like Robert joining us today, or not like Robert, where you're in a position where you can contribute financially, that's okay. That's totally fine. Make sure you click the thumbs up. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Doing all of that can help us a heck of a lot. And while you guys are over on YouTube, make sure that you go to Scott's page at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. And at some point during the show, I'll drop his link in the chat. So you guys can click that as well if you want. But Scott's dropping a bunch of good stuff. The preseason is right around the corner. Training camp's right around the corner. NFL's right around the corner. The sunset on the NBA. Now we're here. It's football season. And Scott, there's a big I don't know how much of a basketball guy you are. I'm not the biggest basketball follower. I played basketball. Got dunked on by, who he went to Ames High School. It'll come to me. Somebody who played in the NFL for a while. Harrison Barnes. Went up against Harrison Barnes. That did not go well.
He went to North Carolina, didn't he?
Yes, but he was from Ames. Also, his teammate was McDermott, who went to McDermott played. His dad, I think, coached at Creighton. Maybe he went to Iowa State there for a little bit too. It's been so long. It's been too many beers ago. It's basketball. How do you feel about the schedule for the basketball this season? I really like the NBA championship ending in July, and now it's like boom, football. I know baseball is the pastime, but now it feels like there's just so little, and we're already right here for football.
Yeah, I didn't pay too much attention, and frankly, I was a huge NBA fan in the 80s and 90s. And then it kind of tailed off the first lockout in 98. I said, that's it. I'm boycotting these greedy owners, because it wasn't a strike. It was a lockout. And that also that was in the same span that the Hawks fell off a cliff, because they were a pretty good team then. And I moved to California. And then Shaq and Kobe and I couldn't stand Kobe Bryant, may he rest in peace, the player, not the person. And Shaq and Kobe made the NBA boring. Because it was like nobody's beating these guys, and then kids and everything. So I haven't watched the NBA in years. In years, something had to give with my time as I poured it into all this other stuff. But I might try. I said I'm not going to hop on the Hawks bandwagon this year because I'll jinx them. But I'm probably, they're a young and exciting team, and I want to watch Trae Young, and so I'll probably start at the beginning of next year and start watching them more often for sure.
I did not know this until recently, but the Atlanta Hawks, they originated from near my hometown on the Mississippi River on the Illinois side, Moline. They were one of the first teams there, and they were the Tri-City Blackhawks.
I didn't know that either. We know all about the Braves, but I thought the Falcons and Hawks were Atlanta originals. I didn't know they moved.
Yeah, the Tri-City Blackhawks, this would have been a long, long time ago. I think it would have even been the ABA days. This was like in the late 40s, early 50s. So, the Tri-City Blackhawks in Moline, Illinois. So shout out to the Quad Cities, and a little bit of history there.
And my dislike for the NBA, the media hasn't helped. It became just I enjoy teams, I enjoy players, but you can't throw a stone without somebody trying to compare legacies. It's like, can I just watch the game without having to hear, is this the best ever? Is this the best ever? Is this the greatest team? Is that the greatest team? Is this the greatest? Who's this the best? Jesus, shut up. So that got it quit being about the teams. You can't watch a game without somebody comparing this player to that player and all this. And it's just like, I like basketball. It's a cool game. Can we watch the game, please? So that started with me with Kobe and Jordan, because that's just a disgrace. But it kept going. It got worse, and it's only gotten worse. So I've no, the NBA is. I haven't been a big fan, but I'm gonna give it another shot this year.
All right. Well, hopefully everybody's giving the Broncos another shot. Thank you for joining us today for this show. Speaking of the Broncos, Jay asking also, can we finally go 5 days a week? Training camp soon. We have shows 5 days a week, Jay. It's just not Broncos for breakfast. If that's going to happen, that'll be in the season. There's only so much bandwidth to cover that much right now. But if you're asking for it, and the biggest thing is we need to feel the love in the super chats as well. If those are pouring in and like, okay, we need to have another show in there because the money's just flowing in. That's when it's going to happen. Mike Gibbons coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. Sup, Broncos country. Good morning to you, Mike Gibbons. Dave Glassman, consistent, always love, man. The orange heart, the blue heart, and the cheers. Shout out to you, Dave. Let us know what's your adult beverage of choice. I'm definitely basic. I like myself a good IPA, but let us know. Mo Ron coming in here. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see you, Mo Ron. EJ's in the house too. Good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos country. US Dave's in the house. Good to see you, US Dave. He says, go Broncos. Mr. Sir McLovin over on Twitch. Always got to give the Twitch people a shout out. Good morning, fellas. Good morning to you. EJ's asking what's for breakfast. We're going to get to linebackers. Facebook user said, morning, Nick, Scott, and John. No John, but John's going to join me Friday, so we'll see. Facebook user also saying good morning. Another Facebook user saying good morning, fellas. Just going to try and get my kids through their mom's second heavenly birthday today. Man, don't know who you are, Facebook user, because you're hidden there, but either way, thoughts with you, man. That's a lot. That's really heavy. I got no advice. I haven't gone through that other than, reach out on Twitter. Seriously, my DMs are open. If you just need somebody to talk to,
we're thinking about you.
Yeah, I seriously will. But thinking about you, man, that's really rough. Fallen Sloth back in here today. Good morning, Fallen Sloth. He says good morning in Broncos country. Robert Caslow's in the house. There's the energy I need. I need to drink some coffee. What's up, my Broncos maniacs? There we go. Love it. He asks, is the third round linebacker going to be a sideline warrior because of injuries? Robert, we'll get to Baron Brown in here pretty soon. No doubt about it. We'll talk about it. Oh, Peter Middleton's in the house. Good to see you, Peter. He says, hello, Nick and Steve. Having beers on the rooftop, enjoying Broncos for breakfast. You know what? However you want to do it, just be safe, be smart. We'll get to it. But
right.
let us know.
All right. This comes up fairly often, so I'm gonna point this out. My name's it is Steve. My name is Steve. My first name is Steven. My dad's name is Steve. But you didn't know that.
No.
And I get called Steve all the time like that with people who don't know that. So evidently it fits. So yeah, I'm a middle name. I go by my middle name. So I'm an S Scott, and S is Steve and Steven. Yeah. But I stop people when they do that. I'm like, why'd you call me Steve? Oh man, sorry. I just didn't think about it. I'm like, well, no, that's my name, but you didn't know that. So it's very interesting how often that happened. I got called Chris so many times in high school, I answered to it. But now it's definitely more Steve. It's funny. Yeah,
I was fortunate enough to be the oldest sibling, and there's a lot of Nicks out there, so I went by Kendall a lot of times, and then I have a younger sister who unfortunately then was known as Kendall's sister. So that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. I was a big nerd, but I did a lot in school, so I guess I was kind of known. Yeah, we got Peter saying it's the last day of quarantine as well. Good to hear that, Peter. We got Smiley Mary coming in here. Where'd that go? Disappeared on me. That's okay. There she is. Smile Mary Smith. Good to see you, Smile Mary Smith. Yep. Oh, and here we go. I can't even imagine what you're going through, Greg. Heart goes out to you and your family. Greg, your name didn't show up on our end. It says Facebook user, probably something in the settings, but heart goes out to you. Gary Leeds Palmer coming in. I love Broncos for breakfast. Hello, Broncos country. Gary, we love you. Good to see you. We got Dom in the house. Brendan's in the house. Mo Ron with the $5 super. Thank you. He's pulling for the 5 days a week show. Great duo. Thanks. DBA's in the house. What's good to y'all? Hope everyone's good. Michael's in the house. Karaoke Chris is in the house. Dave Schlosser's in the house. And Ken Booker is asking some questions as well. It's Greg Smith, Nick. Not sure why I'm hitting. Well, Greg, Greg, you always aloha. Yeah, God, really thinking about you today. I don't know why it's coming up. But rough. Nick have Chad upload a video that shows how to fix Facebook user. I think it's just something like the feed today. It's some days it works, some days it doesn't. So I don't know on that one. But Greg, we're thinking about you, man. That's really rough. Thank you for letting yourself know. Because man, that's hopefully we'll see it tonight too. But that's rough, man. So no easy transition on that one. Scott, let's get into the linebackers here. We've had a couple questions already about the linebacking core, a couple of these guys, but we got to get into the starters here. And that would be Josie Jewell, fourth-year player, I believe, this year, drafted in 2018. 2018, 19, 20, 21. Yep. So he's played, this will be his fourth season. And also, of course, Alexander Johnson used to go by AJ Johnson, but since coming off of his non-guilty verdict, wanted to change his name, put that persona in the past, went from AJ to Alexander. So Broncos 2 starting linebacking duos, or starting linebackers. This is a position that a lot of people, I feel like there's such a disconnect between myself and a lot of Broncos country when it comes to the linebackers in general, but also these linebackers. They're fine. They're not going to be an issue this year. They're a small issue compared to other concerns I have. Could they be a more athletic duo? Sure. Could we have better just pure athleticism and coverage in space? Sure. Are these two going to kill you? No. Are they going to be the reason you lose a game? Probably not. So I like Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell. Have you gotten a chance to watch much of them? I know you probably
I haven't watched them a ton, but you just, knowing in a 3-4 scheme, they're not supposed to be dynamic playmakers. They're supposed to be steady. They're supposed to be guys that can do a job. The 3-4, the worst job in on the defense in that is the nose guard, because all he's doing is just holding on to guys and occupying space. And then your two middle linebackers, your two inside linebackers behind them are supposed to just be sure tackling, steady presences. And I think, looking at the numbers, that's what you've got in these two, 100, almost 250 tackles combined between them. And what I like is some of and frankly, Josie Jewell sounds like the outlaw. That's
what
his
nickname is.
What?
That's his nickname.
Okay, yeah, okay. It had to be. Yep. It's just that just makes sense. Like the outlaw Josie Jewell. Okay, that makes sense. Had to be. Looking at his numbers coming out of Iowa, it's just another stark reminder that, again, I always have to preface this. If you take me out of context, I'm going to sound like an idiot. But speed is overrated. Why does this guy fall? Because he ran a 4.8. At the combine, he was a 4.8 guy. 4.8 is fast enough at the middle linebacker if you know how to play the position. He's only if he's doing it right, yeah, he needs to go side to side. And he's got to have good lateral movement, but he's running 5-6 yards at a time and then colliding with people. That's it. That's all you need. You need to be able to read the right gap, read the right hole. If he's from Iowa, he probably wrestled. I love wrestling linebackers because you cannot cut block a wrestler. Can't do it.
Yeah.
So he knows how to get rid of his guys and then make sure tackle. So very steady here, but they're both free agents.
Yeah, that's honestly the biggest thing about this position, and the reason maybe taking a linebacker early this last draft made sense. It's not about 2021, it's about 2022, 2023, 2024, and having somebody cost controlled on the roster that is not only under your thumb because you already have them on the team, but also cheap. So Peter Middleton coming in here saying Broncos for breakfast. Every Bronco needs it in their life. Well, guys, if you like Peter Middleton, you guys should definitely go out there and like, subscribe, and share on YouTube or wherever you're doing it. Share the content so we can get it out here. And thank you very much for the stars. We appreciate it very much. So, yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much. And you make a good point here. Let's get into Josie Jewell first. I know he's kind of more of the unheralded of the duo. Alexander Johnson really busted onto the scene the second half of 2019. He was one of the higher rated linebackers according to Pro Football Focus in 2019. He did slide a little bit this last season. He didn't, I guess maybe not slide. People were expecting him, it's a second year, he should take a step forward. Although, as we know in football and in life, growth is not linear. It's kind of more of a up and down. Alexander Johnson also, I think it's worth noting, he missed a good chunk of his early career because he was undergoing a investigation, a trial for sexual assault, and
beyond,
I think
beyond investigation, it was a
yeah.
trial, and
Yep.
that took 3 years. For something like that, that's no good for anybody.
No.
There's nobody that wins in that regard.
Nope.
For something to take that long.
Yep, but found not guilty, so he's now on the Broncos. And they signed him. He was a practice squad guy, I think, his first year, and then kind of developed on. I know at Tennessee, he was a guy who racked up tackles like crazy. He was one of the all-time leading tacklers for the Tennessee Volunteers. Played middle linebacker for them, wore number 45, had the dreads. He's easy to see, bigger than most of those other linebackers too, because 6'4", 245. More of a classic thumper in that regard. The sideline to sideline speed was never going to have him be a first-round pick at the linebacker position. Probably would have been a day 2 pick. Broncos get him as an undrafted free agent, given what's going on with his past. And he's been solid for them so far. He's not a super dynamic player, but one thing he has that I think is very valued and underrated, especially in this defense where you're not asking them to reinvent the wheel in coverage. You're not asking them to play sideline to sideline too much. He is a big mother trucker. Like I said, 6'4", 6'5", 240, 250. Because of that, he has length in his drop zones. He can cover much more space because of that. And it is a real boon to him in the red zone as well. So if you ever match him up one-on-one against a Darren Waller,
he's a big body. He's not quite that tall.
He's not? Okay, 6'3"?
Yeah, he's about 6'2", but he's pushing 260.
2K,
so,
God.
Yeah, so he's he is big. But that's where your 3-4 linebackers, they end up being like that. When the 3-4, because I've said before, I scouted high school guys going to college, and the 3-4 didn't really exist in college. Everybody played a 4, and your idea of who can play what across those lines changes in a 3-4.
Yeah,
there was a Hawaiian kid or one of the Pacific Islanders kid who's 330 pounds, and he was playing defensive end in a 3-4 for Alabama. Wait a minute. He's 330 pounds. That's not a defensive end. And, Donta Hightower's coming out. He's 260 in college. That's a guy who puts his hand in the dirt.
Yeah.
Well, the other part of that is Alabama also recruits the exceptions to the rule. No, you're not playing linebacker at 260 pounds unless you're Donta Hightower.
Yeah.
So they get those exceptions. But, yeah, he is big. And for better or for worse, we talk about this about running backs a lot. How about linebackers? How about the wear and tear that he missed on his body? He would be typically a young 29 or 30 years old, you'd think, right? Especially, with those collisions to the head, right?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a point of it. The linebacker is a very physical position, and you're going to take on a lot of offensive linemen, especially in the 3-4. You have less mass in front of you to take on those offensive linemen, so you're going to be asked to take on those bodies more often in the run game. So it's definitely a big point for it, and I'm very curious what the Broncos do here. There's a chance that they re-sign neither Josie, Jewell, or Alexander Johnson, but you think they're going to re-sign
room, and they've got room. And I was looking before we did the show at the money that's typically for the top 15 linebackers. It's usually $6 to $9 million. And they're at, I think Josie Jewell's on his option year of 2.2, and Alexander Johnson's at 3.4. I don't know that they're going to get a huge bump. I don't think they'll jump into that 6 to 9 range, but 4 to 5 might be reasonable. And there's room to re-sign those guys if you want them back.
Yeah, I could see one of them getting 6 to 7 million. We've seen some pretty crazy linebacker contracts recently. Nick Kwiatkowski and Corey Littleton signed incredible deals with the Raiders. Did not help them one bit, but there is some demand for that linebacker position. I would argue it's probably the least valuable position on the defensive field these days. It's not like running back where it's completely dependent, but I'd say it's more like tight end where, you can get by. As long as you're not totally inept there, you should be fine. You do not need a star at linebacker.
Unless you have a star, then he's worth paying for. We talked about that
Fred Warner yesterday.
Well, we talked about that. Speaking of stars, kid from Penn State that went to Dallas.
Parsons, yeah,
Micah Parsons. He's a difference maker. You don't necessarily need a difference maker in that, but when you've got one in the middle of the field, you know it. You know he's there. And that was my thinking. Plus I grew up when the linebackers were sexy. We had Mike Singletary, patrolling the middle of the fields, and you can't tell me Mike Singletary wasn't worth every penny he was paid.
Yeah, linebackers are very much again, it's kind of like the running back, where it's I would say it's almost a romanticized position at this point because of how much more valuable the defensive line and the cornerbacks are.
Well, it's a passing game now.
Yep.
It's a passing game now, without a doubt.
Yep. Exactly. Dave coming in here, I had to read this one because, you're killing me with this one. Dave says he's an IPA guy. Am reminded by me when I look at our large section of Topping Goliath. Topping Goliath is a local beer in Iowa. Pseudo Sue, King Sue, Golden Nugget. God, so many good ones. And I miss it dearly. I know there's a lot of good choices out here in Seattle. I miss my Topping Goliath, though. So Ken Booker coming in here saying that's crazy to think that Javonta Williams played linebacker. I wonder how good he was. Well, that's not that shocking, right? If you guys remember DJ Williams, Broncos first round pick way mid 2000s, I think.
He was considered one of the best when DJ was coming out. He was considered one of the best high school football players of all time. Just little fun fact.
And he was an incredible running back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason that the linebackers, running backs, they're kind of the Spider-Man pointing meme, right? And if I was a parent of somebody who was a running back, I'd be like, listen, I love you. You love having the ball in your hand. The coach thinks you should be there. If you're good enough, you're playing defensive end or linebacker because you're not making that money or having a long career playing running back.
Which is crazy because everybody wants the ball. They're saying, I don't want to play running back anymore. You get too beat up. That's not the mentality you necessarily want in football, but it's true. And I think, seeing we've seen much more that people are more willing to share the load and how important that is for longevity of their career to have a partner. You don't want to carry 30 times, get 400 carries a year. You only be able to do it twice and then you're done.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's kind of the same thing with wide receivers, right? There's like 10,000 wide receivers. Listen, kids, we need defensive backs so badly. Like if you can go make money playing.
I've always speaking of guys, I've always tried to do that with basketball players. A 6'3" guard. There's 4 million of you out there. 6'3" as a receiver is big. If you're athletic enough to catch the ball at 6'3", you can get scholarship money. I promise you.
Yeah.
Where you're not going to get a sniff in basketball.
Yep. Absolutely. So keeping it back here, Josie, Jewell, Alexander Johnson. We'll keep on them here for a little bit longer. We got a question first from Robert Caslow. Should linebackers be able to start from the rookie season, or do they take a couple of seasons to develop? Historically speaking, year 2, you should know about the linebacking position. It is one where obviously every single linebacker is different. Some guys are raw, athletic ball of clay that you need to develop over time. Some come in and they are pretty much what they are. Instincts are top notch. And just the technique, the ability to take on blocks, tackling, it's already pretty high. So it's one that I would say on average, year 2, you should know about that player, whether they belong or not.
And it depends on where you take him. If you're taking a linebacker in the first round, he's starting.
Yep.
You're taking a linebacker to start if he's taken in the first round. Now, if you're taking one, and it's true like that with a lot of positions.
Yeah.
Now there's a bigger learning curve, but with running back, like position like running back and linebackers, run and hit. There's definitely reading and schemes, but find ball, seek and destroy. That's not overly complicated.
And I do want to say in the AFC West specifically, though, you do want a linebacker who is patient and lets the play develop, because there is a lot of pre-snap trickery going on in Kansas City, pre-snap movement, etc. And they pull you in because Patrick Mahomes is good outside the pocket. And if you see Tyreek Hill screaming on a pre-snap movement where it could be a jet sweep or a shovel pass, you are reacting. It's really hard to stay that disciplined. So then they just throw it to Travis Kelce right behind you. So got to be disciplined. Cannot. I'm reminded of Kenneth Murray, who was taken in the first round in 2020. Oklahoma, obviously good athlete, made some plays, but he was over aggressive so often. I felt like he let the opposing offense make some big plays because he was out of position consistently.
It's a good point to think of and what I mean by point is just thinking about what I had just said about the first round. Other than quarterback, who, you don't want to start a rookie quarterback, is there any position, if you're taking a guy in the first round, you're expecting him to be a starter at every other position, wouldn't you think? I mean, wouldn't you think? And then if you're taking them below that, then you're kind of a wait and see. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, unless there's a dire need, like, you don't have any safeties and you have your first safety you take in the second round, he's going to be a starter. But any position that you take in the first round, you're expecting to start as a rookie, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would think so. And hopefully I'm not frozen. Scott's a little frozen on my end. It might be my internet. But I think that it is the running back position. There's a difference between starting year one and what their career norms are going to be.
Yeah, and excelling.
I agree with you that quarterback
not necessarily be a Pro Bowl guy.
Yeah.
You could have a guy that's going to be a Pro Bowler, but just might not be his first year. But the question was start, and I think I think any position, including linebacker, if you're taking them, if you're taking a guy in the first round, you're expecting him to start for you first year.
Yep. No, I agree with you. Outside of quarterback, that's the only position where you might not see them start year one, unless you're in a really good position with somewhere like edge rusher or cornerback. Mm-hmm. Those are positions that you typically see a big leap from year one to year two. Ideally, they're kind of one where they're not maybe starting. They come in like a Bradley Roby for the Broncos. His rookie year, he was the nickel cornerback. He was the third cornerback, came in. Great. That was gravy. Shane Ray, another one. He was the third edge rusher. Perfect. That's great. You want him to kind of develop, eat those snaps, and then eventually maybe you transfer that a higher paid edge rusher over to him if it works out well.
Patrick Surtain could be a starter, but doesn't necessarily have to be.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And EJ coming in here saying Luke Kuechly was my favorite linebacker. We need like a guy like that with the Broncos. That's kind of like saying Peyton Manning was my favorite quarterback. We need a guy like that on the Broncos. It'd be hell yeah, sign me up. Point him out to me though, because everybody wants that dude. Right? It's good luck. Like I loved Kuechly coming out Boston College. I've never seen a linebacker tape like him. Honest to God, he was incredible at Boston College. But I think that would have been the 2012 draft, I believe. Loved him, loved Kuechly. But you're talking about a rare breed.
Young-ish. That's not that long ago. It seems like he's been around forever.
He was good immediately. He was one of those ones that was incredible day one. And he's dealt with injuries, but I'm pretty sure it was either 2010 or 2012. It was not the same draft as Von Miller. It was a draft that was, I think it would have been 2012 for Luke Kuechly. Somebody can check me on that.
So let's get back to Denver Broncos linebackers here. And there's a question in here about Baron Browning, and is he going to be a sideline warrior because of injuries? And I didn't remember him having a history of injuries, and so I looked back at his Ohio State numbers, and he didn't miss a game.
No.
So I don't expect that to be a problem. I mean, players get injured, but he doesn't have a history of injuries that I'm aware of, because he played. You look at his numbers: 12 as a freshman, 12 as a sophomore, 12 as a junior, and then 7 as a senior, which is all he could play. So he doesn't have a history of injuries.
No, I think people are maybe a little bit of snake bit by KJ Hamler last year, who people were excited for, and he just could never get on the field with that hamstring injury. And hopefully that doesn't become the case for KJ Hamler. It is important to note for KJ Hamler that he is still one of the youngest players on the Broncos team. They drafted him at 20 years old, so even though it's his second year, he's younger than half the draft class because he was that young coming out. So still, you have one less year of control, but he's got plenty of time to figure it out. But for Baron Browning, I'm not worried about him becoming a sideline warrior, so to speak. It just, to me, means that Baron Browning, with all this development, this time he missed early on, he's going to be behind the curve early. And I do not have very much expectations for Browning starting this year. I never did to begin with, because he was a late round 3 pick. That's more about you're investing in that guy, and what if you can get anything starting potential 2022, 2023, fantastic. 2021, anything beyond special teams, that's gravy. I'll take it, but I'm not expecting it.
Yeah, and he's got a similar profile to Alexander Johnson. He's going to play this year at about 245 pounds. We'll add some weight as he gets older. And he is a strike first type of guy. He may see some time as outside play, an edge rusher too. Go get the quarterback, in third down situations, depending on the time. Yeah. But he is a go forward, attack the ball carrier, attack the blockers type of linebacker, which offensive lineman. I switched up my name. Attack the offensive lineman. He is a go forward attack type of guy.
Yeah, he does have enough athleticism to play sideline to sideline. And that's Baron Browning. You scouted him somewhat coming in here. We've kind of had some debate with the MHH staff about where he's going to end up, off-ball linebacker or edge rusher. I think he could work at edge if the instincts and processing doesn't catch up for that linebacking position, the off-ball linebacking position. Do you have any thoughts there for Browning to where he ends up? And I think that because of the injuries and everything he's had so far, it makes it even harder for him to play both positions this year. Hopefully he just focuses on one.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it could be he's versatile enough to be a first guy in several of those spots. So the season may dictate where he's needed. And frankly, for me, it'll just be getting him used to the game and the speed of the game. So I wouldn't necessarily be as concerned about focusing on one position as I would just getting him out there and getting, knocking the green off of him and let him make some plays. So I think he's got a chance to play in a couple different positions. I wouldn't get in that argument of, oh, he's going to be this or he needs to be this. I would be just, let's get him on the field in a couple different places where he's needed and see how he can develop the mental part of his game as far as just being used to being out there and getting the experience of being out there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Browning, again, though, if he doesn't see much of the field this year until 2022, I'm not going to freak out because he's a one of the last. In fact, he was the last pick of day 2 of the NFL draft this year. So you could say he's an early day 3 pick. What are your expectations for that kind of guy?
Mm-hmm.
That's even if he develops into a starter, that's unlikely given where he was drafted. Doesn't mean it won't happen. But
look at the 2 guys now.
Yep. Undrafted free agent and 4th round pick. So, but I believe that's where you should be looking for your linebackers, unless you believe the integrity of your defense and the scheme you want to run is dependent on having a 5-tool, 4-tool guy there at the linebacking position. Historically, Vic Fangio, has had a high investment in the linebacking position. Obviously, there's Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Roquan Smith, all good linebackers. I don't know if Navarro Smith was that high of an investment or Navarro Bowman was that high of an investment. But either way, that's not been the case for Vic Fangio so far in Denver. He's been getting by with, I wouldn't say spare parts, but, just league average level investments and been maximizing them. And he doesn't ask the linebackers to reinvent the wheel either. I think that's one thing that a lot of people do not understand and it's not just the 3-4, it's Vic Fangio specifically. A lot of this is run funneling, run fits for his linebackers, and he's not asking them to play sideline to sideline. He's not asking them to drop into space and play one-on-one versus Travis Kelce. He will do that with running backs sometimes, schematically. He will do that with running backs, not so much with tight ends. So people are like, oh man, what are we going to do with Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, blah, blah, blah. Linebacker was never going to be the solution there anyway.
Put Patrick Surtain on him.
That's yes. Yep.
6'2", 205 in good in coverage and physical. That's where I'm going.
Yep. 100%. And his number one comparison on mockdraftable.com for all defensive backs is, in my opinion, the number 1 tight end stopper in football when healthy, Derwin James. So there you go. I think that's going to be the solution there. Maybe if you go against like Austin Eckler, he might give a Josie, Jewell in space a hard time. But Austin Eckler is going to do that against most players. And I want to have just a greater discussion here about the linebacking position. In today's NFL, I would argue that a lot of passing concepts and what teams are trying to do in the pass game in general is oriented because they know that there's just not the type of athletes at the linebacking position that can keep up with the tight ends, that can keep up with the running backs, that can keep up with the wide receiver. I mean, if you have a Fred Warner who goes up against a wide receiver 3, sometimes that's a rare breed. But teams specifically are scheming to attack the linebacking position. It's not a Broncos issue. It's just the way the game is right now. That guy's almost always going to be a weakness, and that's going to continue as long as the game's played the way it is.
A lot of crossing routes, a lot of slants, a lot of quick reads, angles, circles, that type of stuff. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yep. So it would be very tough to find a guy who can stop them all. I mean, it'd be great if you can find Luke Kuechly to put on your defense, but you're talking about a first ballot Hall of Famer. So get in line. So Josie, Jewell, Alexander Johnson. Do you have any thoughts on either of these guys earning a contract or anything that you think they should do this year that could warrant one being favored over the other?
Well, I mean, I just think when you're looking, we were talking about free agents and swinging for the fences. We mentioned Fred Warner. Okay, well, he's off the table. So
yeah,
what are your options that are going to be affordable? I mean, these guys are both free agents, but they're not going to be mega contracts unless they play themselves into that, which again, that's a good bad. Alexander Johnson became the best inside linebacker in the NFL. That's good. Okay, now he's going to triple his money. Okay, that's bad.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an incremental increase in what it would take to re-sign them. So if they are productive and have good seasons, there's nobody behind them necessarily unless Baron Browning becomes that guy that's pushing them. So I can see them absolutely being re-signed. Like I said, if you got Alexander Johnson at 3.4 now, what's 4.5 a year for the next 3 years? That doesn't change your available salary cap hardly at all. If you've got Josie Jewell at 2.2 right now, maybe he even goes to 4. Well, 1.8 is hardly going to put a difference. It's hardly going to put a dent in what you have available to rebuild other parts of your team. And you're just keeping on keeping on. So I could see both of these guys possibly being re-signed, unless, like I said, they play out of their minds and get a good deal. And that's okay. That's good news for the Broncos for 2021.
And hopefully 2022 with compensatory picks, if that's the case, if they go sign elsewhere. Man, I just can't see either of them signing for as little as you're saying, with the money increasing and knowing that they are quality linebackers. I mean, what did Blake Martinez make? Blake Martinez is a guy who I think is just league average as hell. But I want to say the Giants signed him to a stupid contract. And I know it's just, one team can sign one player to a stupid contract. But for that little, I still think both those guys will probably be making $1 to $2 million more per year than that. And Blake Martinez is making almost $10 million a year. So what's going on here? What the hell?
Well, like I said, I did a search and I sorted by inside linebackers before we came on. And, the number 10 is making 7.2 a year. It's Jalen Smith. Okay. Number 11's at 7.1. And you go down to 15, it's at 6. You're down to $6 million. You go down to number 20, you're at 3.5. And by the way, Alexander Johnson's is number 19 in total cash at 3.4.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, that's not, unless you jump into the top 5, and number 5 is still a 9. You see, we're not talking like, 30 million. We're not talking crazy money because of the position. So, based on the available room, an increase in there, I can see an incremental increase to what they're already being paid that keeps them competitive amongst some of the best paid linebackers in the league.
Yeah, that would be great. I think Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson are actually very close to each other. And I think Josie Jewell is a little bit more steady in his positioning. He is smaller.
Then he might triple his money. But even 6 isn't with the available. If he triples his money and gets 6 a year, should be, I would think that would be enough to make him happy, to want to stay without crippling, without significantly impacting what the Broncos are able to do at other positions with their available salary cap. Again, we get back to the discussion we had on Tuesday about the front office. You got the number 12 roster, but the 19th GM, the number 12 roster with the most available salary cap money. That's a good thing. I'm just thinking, you've got so many options with this available cap money and a good talented roster. Some of these guys are going to be coming off contracts, and you're going to have to make some decisions on who is going to eat into that roster coming off rookie contracts. Yeah. But the Broncos are in such an enviable position as the rest of the league with a talented roster and a lot of room under the salary cap. Yep. Man, that sounds like a pretty good job. That doesn't sound like a bottom third front office to me.
Yeah, and Peter Milton kind of leaning into this one. Rodgers are all the people we want to sign next year. Who do you choose? You're talking about everything, all this good stuff the Broncos have. Got to figure out that quarterback position, though. So this is an easy answer for me. It's Rodgers. You can let other people walk. I keep Sutton, please, though. But we got Corey Johnson coming in here. Hello, Corey, over on YouTube. He says, if you can scheme Jewell out of man coverage, he seems quite good to me. His short area acceleration and tackling make him good in zone/run defense. And that's true. Josie Jewell, while he isn't the best sideline to sideline, he had like one of the highest 3 cones ever recorded for the combine. I think he was in the 97th percentile, which was bonkers for a little small Josie Jewell, no-star athlete.
Around 6'7", 6'6", somewhere in that neighborhood then.
Yep, and another classic, everybody in Iowa knows each other cliche.
6'8", but it says 6.8 for a linebacker. 6.8 that's insane. I mean, that's on a track. That's on a track going. So yeah, Josie. Again, we talk all the time. If you want to see an athlete, especially look at his L cone and his 3 cone, not his 40 time.
My biggest issue with Josie, it'd be great if he had a little bit more speed, but I wish he was bigger. He is pretty small, and that limits him a bit, especially in the 3-4 where guys engulf him. He has to be smart and quick to beat those guys, but if he was just a little bit bigger, that would be a huge difference maker for him.
No, because you're getting hit by guards and centers a lot when you're a 3-4 inside linebacker. So because the nose guard's only going to take the center of the guard. That means there's a free guard coming to get you. Yep. Or at best a fullback if somebody's still running that scheme. So you're taking on a lot of punishment. So playing that AJ Johnson, Alexander Johnson at 260, Baron Browning at 250. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I can't remember the kid's name, Ben something out of Michigan. Oh, the number 1 fullback and play tight end. Baron Browning, just a obliterated him on a rush off the edge. And Ohio State, Michigan, some people got a kick out of that, but just straight in and just rocked him. I'm like, that's what you need as a 3-4 inside backer.
Yep. Absolutely. And there is another inside linebacker that I do think is worth mentioning for this team long term, and that is Justin Stranad, 5th-round pick out of Wake Forest. He's one that people are like, oh, man, we need Justin Stranad to play. He's the coverage answer we need. He's a lesser athlete than Alexander Johnson, than Josie Jewell, but coverage at the linebacking position does not equal athleticism. You talk about a guy who you mentioned a few weeks ago, I don't know, time flies. Boss Bailey, one of the best athletes ever to play linebacker, didn't have the instincts, did not. I mean, he was a great athlete, but he was lost in space, lost in coverage, didn't matter. So obviously, if you can have both, that's great. But athleticism,
I would have turned Boss into a 3rd down specialist. Just put your hand in the dirt, go get the quarterback, because he was, like I said, he was actually on the bigger, faster, stronger scale. He was a better athlete than Champ, and Champ was a freak. So he was sub 4.4, 48-inch vertical leap. Boss Bailey was insane, but he wasn't a football player like Champ. Champ was a football player.
Yep. And linebacker, that's one of those positions where it's, they call it the quarterback of the defense, and that's because maybe that's a little bit cliche, but I think it has more to do with the actual intelligence that's demanded for the linebacker position, the processing speed, the instincts, more important than the athleticism and the size and whatnot. Those physical measurements. Now that can separate 1st-round pick to a 2nd-round pick. You're looking for differentiators when you're doing the draft. But that's also probably one of the reasons that linebacker, the hit rate for the 1st-round linebackers is almost exactly the same as it is for round 2 and round 3. Right? Like there's guys who work out there. And that's another reason why I don't think you should invest 1st-round picks in linebackers historically, because you have just as good of odds of hitting a guy day 2 as you do day 1. Use day 1 picks for edge, tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, quarterback, if at all possible. And we got Tommy Simmers coming here saying trade Justin Simmons. Tommy, that ship has sailed. Once the Broncos paid him, and I don't think they should have done that anyway. And I know you're making points here. How many teams have built championship rosters around a safety? Well, how many football playoff games has Khalil Mack won, right? Like if it's not a quarterback, then it could be almost any single one of these positions you could make this argument for. But trading Simmons, that boat sailed as soon as he signed his contract. If the Broncos traded him, he would probably have like a $20 million dead cap hit for the Broncos right now. Guys, once they've signed contracts, almost impossible to trade until the end of their contract.
It's 32 this year.
No way.
32 million dead cap hit, which
not happening.
If you're Julio Jones, that means we can move you now.
Oh God.
And next year is 26, and then 2023 it drops to 7.5 when he's 30. So that's where you start looking for something to happen in 2023.
Yep. And we'll be happy that Simmons' contract is what it is by the time Jamal Adams gets a contract, by the time Derwin James gets a contract, and by the time Minkah Fitzpatrick gets a contract. Those are all guys who are probably going to beat him out. It's not always, who's the best. It's who's next to get paid. That's just the way it goes. It's cyclical. Karaoke Chris coming in here saying money doesn't seem to be the issue for building a championship roster, and Simmons, it's an integral part of our defense. There we go. And here we go. We didn't draft 2 safeties because we are planning on keeping him for the duration. Tommy, I don't think that's true, buddy. They drafted 2 safeties because they had extra picks. They were actually all set to draft Tommy Doyle. Speaking of Tommy, who was an offensive tackle from Miami, and the Buffalo Bills sweeped him before the Broncos could take him.
Those Bills.
They did it 2 times in this draft. Yeah, I know. Bummer. But so the Broncos then doubled down on safety, a 4th-round pick and a 5th-round pick at that. Guys who are pretty good long shots to become great starters. I mean, not long shots, but I would not bet on them being incredible starters, especially both of them. And also, this is a team that you're looking to play 2-3 safeties a lot of times. We saw it with Will Parks as well. They took Will Parks and Justin Simmons the same year. You're going to need those guys, and guess what? 3 safety sets, that's going to happen. But also, both those guys can play special teams. And you're talking about day 3 picks, they have to play special teams. That's a have to for me.
Yep, that's how you're gonna make the team for sure. And with special teams, I always said that a phrase, you can't measure someone's heart. You can tell, but I say you can tell if they've got one. Watch them play special teams. Yeah. You'll see how bad a kid wants to play. Yep. So and if they want to play and they want to make this team, they're gonna play special teams.
Absolutely. And we got Mr. Boggins coming in here, my Pacific Northwest buddy, coming in with $5 super, saying any quarterback in the 2022 draft you'd rank higher than QB4 in 2021. Besides Rattler, it's a mixed bag of with some high ceilings. I wouldn't right now. We got a whole season to play, though, so things could change drastically. Somebody could come out and explode. But I will say on the surface, based on tools and flashes that I've seen, I have two quarterbacks in the 2023 class that I'm higher on than anybody in 2022 in DJ Ugalale and Bryce Young. So those are two quarterbacks that have my attention. I think those are the guys who are going to take the league by storm. There is a quarterback, though, that some people have been hyping up. He could fall flat this year, but we did not see much of him last year. Emory Jones at Florida, good athlete, good arm, practically an unknown, but he's one who could burst onto the scene and really throw his hat in the ring as a top pick at quarterback.
And my follow-up question for Mr. Boggins is, who was your QB4 in last draft? And I'll ask you the same thing and let him answer.
My quarterback 4 was it was Trey Lance.
Me too.
But I loved Trey Lance. I thought he was worth a top 10 pick. I would have no issue doing that, taking that swing on him. And it sounds like his intangibles and intelligence and whatnot were even more impressive than people let on. So that's stuff that we can't really evaluate from this end. But I would take Trey Lance pretty much over any of the quarterbacks in next year's class, especially if you are ranking Rattler's perceived, not that's the wrong word, but reported attitude, character, I guess is another one. It's not like he's out here like robbing banks or whatnot, but he sounds like he's like a bully in an 80s movie, 80s high school movie, that kind of guy pushing dudes into locker, alienated from his teammates.
Well, that's a tough spot to be in when you are the quarterback, because there's going to be guys out there a lot, not just a little, but a lot bigger than you. So you better watch out. There was a former Iowa quarterback, I don't know how much he actually played there, and we can talk about this later, who had that problem as a recruit. And his roommate at one of the All-Star games pinned him up against it was a center, pinned him up against the wall and said, "Knock it off, or I'm going to break you in half." So you better make friends when there's guys out there that are 150 pounds bigger than you and faster. I always said, if I can't kick your ass or outrun you, we're going to be friends.
Yeah. It's the Johnny Manziel stuff, right? Like, although I think Manziel was actually a little bit more liked than what I've heard about Rattler. But we'll see. Broncos 17-0 coming in here. Didn't come in after we were getting out of here this time. So we gave you a shout out on Tuesday, Broncos 17-0, because last Thursday you came in right when we were closing. But $20 super. Thank you so much. And he says, good morning. Good morning to you, Broncos 17-0. And maybe that's a new picture as well. It's a beautiful one of the sunset there. Love that orange. And so, we got to talk a little bit of Justin Stranad. Drafted 5th round, Wake Forest. He had injuries, and he missed all last season because of the injuries. It sounds like this year, if you're expecting him to start, don't. But he's somebody who definitely could be on the field in sub packages where they're looking to sub out somebody like an Alexander Johnson, who's a little bit more lumbering than Stranad is in space. Stranad, not the quickest, not the best athlete, but he's fluid in space. And that matters playing in the box, in coverage, those kind of things for linebackers. So I definitely expect some sub packages where you see Stranad subbed in and one of the linebackers subbed off this season. Does that make him an eventual starter? We're going to have to see how he looks this season. But he's definitely somebody who is auditioning for a starting role. And if you can get, 80% of the production at 30-40% of the price compared to letting Josie Jewell walk, letting an Alexander Johnson walk, which makes it more probable for you to bring in a new quarterback, maybe a right tackle next year, re-sign Cortland Sutton, re-sign Bradley Chubb maybe early as well. That's something you have to think about.
Get an extension to Aaron Rodgers, whatever, you have the money to, but it all works out in that ratio for, what can I get for what costs, like I said, 90% of the productivity for a quarter of the price. Yeah. But auditioning is a good word. If everybody's healthy, the starters are set. The starters are set for this team. But again, 2 of your starters are free agents. 3 of them, actually, if we start going outside, are free agents this year. So there's going to be a lot of auditioning, and frankly, that makes for better competition. That'll make the team better, knowing that I can get this spot next year, or I'm playing to try and get a new contract. All those things should help make this team better.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100% there. A few other names want to give a shout out to before we get out of here. Josh Watson, college free agent from Colorado State. He's somebody who's been on the roster, off the roster. he's probably somebody who, if he ends up being a starter for the Broncos, a quality starter, I would be very surprised. He is a bigger body, but he's just kind of a dude. So he's listed. Oh, actually 6'1", 240. So he's not actually. He looked bigger than that. Maybe it's because he was standing next to Jewell, who's a little smaller. But probably more of a special teams guy. And one that's interesting for me is Derek Tuska, North Dakota State edge rusher. Had a lot of sacks at North Dakota State, but watching him in preseason last year, it seemed pretty obvious to me that he did not have the frame or the power to hold at edge in the NFL. Division II rushing the passer, able to dip, didn't look puny versus those Division II tackles. Didn't look like he was going to hold in the NFL. I think if Tuska is going to make it in the league, he's going to have to become an off-ball linebacker, and that's a hard ask, that transition. But that's his path. If he's going to make it in the league, I think he has to be an off-ball linebacker.
I want to go look at Northern Iowa again, or after the two freaks that came out of there this year. Let's see what they've got coming out next year with Ellerson Smith and Spencer Brown. Let's see if they've got another one lined up.
They have actually Northern Iowa. They have an offensive tackle who is very talented, who I am excited to watch this year. So watch out for him. I think he might even be the best tackle in the draft this year from the state of Iowa, which hurts to say as a Hawkeye. For me, the Hawkeyes do have a tackle who I'm interested in developing, but he is probably a year off yet. In Plum, he came into Iowa at about 280 pounds. Now he's up to about 310, and he's learning, but he moves incredibly. So excited to see what he can do this year.
Well, we're doing requests. Denver 17-0. You should definitely have a request. And Mac 85 City. I know you're having trouble concentrating, but put in a request and maybe we can hit it. Thank you for the super. Two, you guys finishing us up strong today. Two of y'all doing that strong today. Certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That would be great if we
highlight
could.
Him, by the way, I haven't seen his name pop up. Highlight that super.
There we go. Mac 85 City. Thank you so much, Mac 85 City, coming over in on YouTube with our biggest super of the day.
Whenever I see your name, I always think Manchester City. Just it looks like Man City to me. I'm like Mac City. It looks like Man City to me. So if you're a Manchester City fan, it would fit. He's like, who? Who's Manchester City? What's that mean?
Man City, man. That's I don't know if Mac is a soccer fan or a European football. But Scott, before we get on out of here, just general thoughts on the Broncos linebacking position for this season. How does it stack up against the rest of the league? Is it going to be the reason this Broncos roster falls apart? I know that another, I would say not a rival site, but they're like, oh man, Broncos linebackers are the reason this defense isn't going to be great again this year. And it was the site that was really pushing for Micah Parsons. So I think it's maybe a little bit of that influencing it. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I told you, I love Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was one of the guys that I would have been excited to see the Falcons take it for, even if they didn't need him. There's one spot, I don't remember, I think Tommy may have asked or someone, how's the Falcons linebackers look? It's like it's the only position on defense that actually is decent, has some proven players. But Micah Parsons, to me, is one of those difference maker types. So, I would have been okay with that pick. I think he was just, one of those best player available type of players. Your outside linebackers, if they stay healthy, again, that's a key. But you've got some depth there with Reed that should be a strength of this defense, getting pressure on the quarterback. And then your two inside guys can do a job.
Yep.
Are they going to be flashy? They don't have to be flashy in a 3-4. They don't have to be flashy anywhere, but they can do a job. You're basically stepping into a gap and becoming the fourth defensive lineman a lot when you're, depending on which way your nose guard goes. AJ Johnson's big enough to do that, 260 pounds, and they're sure tacklers. You're going to scheme your way out of away from the tight end. That's why you change schemes. So you're not going to be in a base 3-4 a ton, and when you are, you're going to be good against what it's supposed to be good at, stopping the run.
Yeah, I think way more important for that those cornerbacks to stay healthy, have those guys out there, get after the passer at the top of the defensive front four, make linebackers' job easy. That's what Vic Fangio wants to do, and I think that's what he can do with the talent they have elsewhere on the roster. So Max saying he does actually knows a little bit about soccer. He says, yes, I play FIFA on Xbox all the time. So that's great to see. We got Michael, looks like, coming in here with a star. Thank you very much, Michael. And guys, that's going to have to do it for us right at 59 minutes. Just an announcement. Next Tuesday, we're actually going to be going live at 7:30 Mountain Time. So I think that'll be for the foreseeable future. You guys let us know on Twitter or whatnot if that's
real quick. Let's just put it in the comments. Is 7:30 Mountain too early for everybody, or would that be okay for just if we started 30 minutes earlier? Would that be okay for everybody, or would that be a problem? And you're never going to make everybody happy. That doesn't work. But if most of y'all say that still works, and that's probably what we'll move forward to. We'll start a half hour earlier.
Yep. And just a shout out for you, since I know how much you love Spencer Brown last year. Northern Iowa has another offensive tackle who is going to be very interesting this year, named Trevor Penning. He's not the same athlete as Spencer Brown, but he's extremely talented. And he's 6'7", 330. And he moves very well.
There are a few athletes like Spencer Brown. Like the only guy I could comparing him to was LeBron James, for God's sakes.
Lane Johnson, maybe.
Yeah, what an athlete. I'm looking forward to him. I gassed him up enough. Again, the phrase, who do I root for? I root for me. So I gassed up Spencer Brown enough that I want him to really succeed.
Yeah. Well, keep an eye out for Trevor Penning. Getting a lot of hype right now. I'm going to share some of his stuff on Twitter. Guys, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for everybody for joining us. This is Broncos for Breakfast. We're coming at you live next Tuesday at 7:30 Mountain Time. So that'd be 6:30 my time. So I'm going to really need that coffee going. You guys can follow Scott and myself on Twitter. Scott at Scout Kennedy and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. While you're over on Twitter, follow us at Huddle Up Pod, at Mile High Huddle. For everybody on Facebook today, enjoy all the heart reacts. Matt Henry, Jacob Roper, Ken Booker, Justin Tharp, Richard Turillo, Gary Leeds Palmer, all the likes as well. There's more than I can even list here. If you guys are enjoying us on Facebook today, please click the thumbs up, click the hearts, share us on your Facebook. Training camp is right around the corner. It's not just this show, it's all the shows. If you can share us, that can help us a lot and get new eyeballs on this content. While you guys are over on Facebook, please go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod, as well as facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. And YouTube listeners, if you're joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe, like, and share, not just to the Mile High Huddle page, but also make sure you are sharing us on Scott's page as well, which is, I thought I had it quoted there, but I didn't. But you guys can follow Scott's page as well at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. Also, guys, you can click the auto sub for Scott. I'm going to drop it in the super chat right now, or the chat right now. If you guys click that link, it'll take you to Scott's page. Scott, do you have anything new on the channel right now, or what's planned?
No, it's quiet. I'm waiting until next week to start hitting on it. And just to answer, Tommy's question, because I want to start doing some fantasy stuff. I am a good fantasy player. I don't particularly like it. I get too competitive, so I might play this year just so I can help with some of the picks and stuff. But yes, Mike Davis is going to be a top 12 running back for fantasy football. I think he's going to have a monster season for the Falcons, certainly better than Todd Gurley did last year, just based on schemes. He's going to get a ton of touches, catching the ball, running the ball. He's going to be the clear-cut number one for an offense that wants to run the ball. Yes, Mike Davis will be a good pick.
Who comes off the board first for the Broncos, Melvin Gordon or Javonta Williams?
Melvin Gordon.
You think he has a higher ADP? Probably because of the known quantity.
Yep.
I just draft, honestly, my strategy in the draft is to take every single rookie running back, because two of them are going to be great.
That gets you in trouble a lot, though. I used to play, that's where I ended up losing stuff. Just with my background, I love the potential. And the rookies, you go with a sure quantity, and then you live off the waiver wire hit sort by targets and touches on the waiver wire in that first week, and that's how you win the league.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I didn't do much fantasy. Maybe I'll do some this year as well. It just takes up a lot of time. And also I'm competitive too. So I want to win so bad. So then it just starts taking up all my time and it absorbs me. I
got invited I started a league in 98, when we're doing box scores and spreadsheets, and it's still going. And the people doing, when I moved back here in 16, they invited me back into it, and I took over the worst team, the last place team, and I won the league, and it was $1,000 win. I'm like, because somebody was stupid and protected a guy, so I got Ezekiel Elliott as a rookie. So thank you. And then I made some waiver wire moves, and I won it. I won $1,000. Yay! I'm like, but you ever see Nick Saban coach? Does he ever look happy? Ever?
No.
Well, no. I made $1,000. He makes about $8 million. For about $8 million, I'd play more fantasy football. So I'm miserable. I'm like, I don't want to stay up till 2 a.m. on a Monday to see how my Monday Night Football guys did. That's too late for me. So So I don't play, but I might this year. I might play. It helps me. It helps me keep up with everybody, and I like giving advice on these things because I am a good player. I just don't particularly like it.
Yeah, I definitely know that I am somebody who can get obsessive with that kind of stuff. So it takes up a lot of time. Yep. It's like, oh man, it's 3 a.m. checking the data and whatnot.
Can't
oh
sleep.
Man,
he needs one more catch. What do you mean? I lost a championship one time. I think it was Corey Dillon fumbled on Monday Night Football on to take me out of the lead and lost 2 points, and I lost by 1.5. And I'm like, I'm done with this. That's the kind of stuff that happens to me when my money's on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next Tuesday. Also, everyone stay safe. Training camp right around the corner. Super excited. But until then, love y'all.